Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Good morning. It's Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide. Johnny Million is on a day of vacation because it is his birthday, and he's at a sporting event of some sort where a spherical object is going to be hit with a cudgel, and people will cheer. And there's apparently a bird with a rather large beak involved, and orange colors. I'm very unfamiliar with the sport, but apparently it's very important to him, and that's beautiful. And filling in for him this weekend, thankfully, pitch hitting, as it were, keep that reference going, is Driftglass from Pro Left Pod and Crooks and Liars. How are you this fine morning, good sir?
I'm great. I hear they are figuring out that dark matter exists and they can prove it, so what's a more important story than that?
Well, I've always said, and I know I don't want to bore you with it, and you know how I can get, but dark matter is just the modern version of the ether, right? And right. So it's sort of a cheap trick to, I mean, why don't you just call it the ether? If you're just going to borrow ideas left over from before we understood what a virus was, for science, why not just use all the old terms? You know what I mean? Why don't we just go back to saying people have stomach demons at this point? Hold on, I'm still getting this up on all of our secondary socials.
You're speaking RFK's language, man. That's exactly where we're going.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
and demons.
You got to look forward to the day when everything can be solved with some hydrogen peroxide and a length of rubber hose. The real issue, I think, going around in the reality of the current day. Okay, so the last 2 days, nothing hinky has occurred in regard to the Epstein thing. Don't anyone take anything away from the Trump's former or current personal attorney. There's debate about which met privately with Ghislaine Maxwell, maybe or maybe not offering her a deal to say stuff or not say stuff. And she allegedly gave up 100 names, the 101st obviously being Trump. And according to her defense attorney, another reliable source in this circumstance, she was completely forthcoming, answered everything because they gave her Queen for a Day immunity. Effectively, if any of you watched, Mindhunter, when they would sit down and go, "We're interviewing you, we want to hear details about your case, but none of this will be used against you in your court. We cannot action any of it, unless you accept our proffer of something in return, right? Unless you quit our pro quo, then if that's the case, then everything you say we'll use, but not against you, against other people." Mm-hmm. And so we're back to Squid Pro Row in the second term. This time, much more egregious. I'm just curious about your take about whether MAGA is going to accept them having a meeting and Trump's not important to any of this. Everything about Bill Clinton and Bill Gates, totally real. They're the real villains behind this. But anything about Trump is just, he was at a couple of parties.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this a lot this morning because everything you just said is wrong. Oh dear. His personal attorney acting under the color of the DOJ, going in there without witnesses, without objective, civil servant witnesses to verify what was actually said. This was, Tom Hagen meeting with, Frankie Five Angels at the fence line, going, you take care of things and we'll take care of you. That's what this was. And clearly some really shady stuff went on inside the cell. And whether or not MAGA writ large leaves, I'm really focused on the fact that MAGA is a cult, right?
Sure.
And Jonestown was a cult. But not everyone in Jonestown voluntarily drank the Flavor Aid.
That's true.
Some number of people tried to run away and they got shot, and some people were injected and some people got away. the people who are going to stick around and believe anything Trump tells them, anything at all, any lifeline will do, those are lost souls. Those are unsalvageable garbage people. They can't be reasoned with. But if there's a tiny number, a small enough number of people who say, you know what, I don't want to drink the Flavor Aid anymore. And there's something weird going on here, and this man's not telling me the truth, and he said he would, and that was the one thing he promised me. And they bolt for the jungle. I say, great. Those people, I don't care if they're pickups or not, or they go back to watching QVC or not. I don't care what they do. But as long as they stay the hell out of the electoral process, I'm good. I'm totally good.
We're talking about 8, 12, 15% of the base that will check out during this time. Now, I got to say, one of the, you probably have seen this as well, is that there were clearly marching orders given to the media, the right-wing media, to move on. And some people jumped right on board. Now, Charlie Kirk is probably the best example of somebody who jumped right on board and then jumped right back off again. So that lasted about 24 hours. And they have been trying to wrestle everybody back to that stuff. They did it with, but the Obama smokescreen is being read as such, both on Rogan and Maladjusted or whatever that ridiculous podcast is, the other right-wing comedians who sit down. Theo Vaughn is having a problem. He's now fallen back to the whole government's against us. You're like, okay, you disagree with the Democrats. They're not against you. You just don't like their solutions to the problems. That's fine. That's democracy. That doesn't mean the government's against you. That means you just don't think that's the right solution. And everybody's allowed to do that. You don't get to say the whole government's against you just because your side lied to you. That's and that's one of the issues that we're running into with this crowd, is that now that they are betrayed by Trump, it's back to uniparty. It's back to they're all in it together. It's, you hear that uniparty phrase thrown around as a weak excuse, by the way, to not participate. And again, if they don't,
that the uniparty excuse is the oldest lie in politics.
Yeah.
Because it's both sides do it. And it goes back at least 40 years. It goes back certainly to the collapse of the Bush administration after the Iraq War went tees up. And everyone who had gone all in on Bush suddenly needed an excuse. And the excuse was provided to them, not by, there was no Breitbart, there was no hate, well, there was hate radio, but it was provided to them by the New York Times and the Washington Post. Everybody's the same. Everybody's awful. Yeah. Everybody's terrible. And there was, do you remember when Joe Lieberman lost his primary to Ned Lamont, and what happened in a Democratic primary? I know this seems a little off topic, but it's coming back around. It's when he lost to Ned Lamont in the Democratic primary, a completely legit, votes counted, etc. The first force out of the gate was a guy named David Brooks in the New York Times, who wrote about, we need a third party, because you have Tom DeLay on the right, and you have the Netroots Tom DeLays on the left, and everything is terrible, and everyone's awful, and both parties are corrupt. We need a third party. So the both sides do it lie is seeing its absolute apotheosis in the MAGA movement, which is when everything else, when all else fails, and you have no place else to go, but you can't stop believing that you and I are demons who murder babies for fun, then you go to the both sides do it lie. And you know what? You'll find people in the legacy media who will tell you you're right.
Yeah, because there's evidence. There's always evidence about that. It's kind of like when you have a genuinely open society that does actually talk about stuff. As much as people think everything's hidden in the CIA behind a veil and all that kind of stuff, Jimmy Carter clipped the CIA's wings fairly soundly during his term, which is one of the reasons why he was on the receiving end of so much, hate, and why Reagan was able to manipulate as much stuff as he was, because he limited what they could do because he saw overreach. He cut the staff by 20,000 people, something like that, which put a lot of people in the wind. But he made an active choice, and they did big reports on it. That's how we knew about Operation Mockingbird. It's how we, eventually it was the same mechanism was in place to, in oversight, the IGs, the inspector generals, were also created by Jimmy Carter, another great Democrat, and things that, by the way, I would argue that if people had applauded them at the time as much as they are decrying them as they go, we wouldn't be in this mess, because people would have gone, damn, Jimmy Carter knew what he was doing. So, So Jimmy Carter,
that's on me.
Yeah.
That's on me, because my first and last foray into third-party politics was voting for John Anderson in that election. That was my first election. I was a kid. I didn't know any better. I was drunk on Ayn Rand and whatever else I was doing at the time. And I thought, both parties are terrible. Jimmy Carter's not liberal enough for me, and Reagan's insane, so I'll vote for John Anderson. And I have never made that mistake again. Right. Never once have I ever made that. That was a mistake of youth. But now that the uniparty is, you see all the usual cockroaches coming out of the woodwork. The Forward Party is back, man.
Yes.
And Third Way is back, and No Labels is
the New America Party is, filed and not filed or whatever. Let's take a break, and when I come back, I want to revisit your analogy of the people who drank the Kool-Aid or didn't drink the Kool-Aid at Jonestown, because there's a backstory to the Kool-Aid, and I think it applies in this circumstance and why I think it won't work. It'll be even worse for the big final solution thing that, the Jonestown of MAGA, it's not going to quite play out the way they want because of this very thing. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Now with 100% more Driftglass from Crooks and Liars, who's visiting us today. By the way, check out Pro Left Podcast, and we'll be back right after this. Yeah, the professional left, it just says professional left. All I see is The Professional, which is, a great movie. So
it is a great movie. Yeah.
No women, no kids.
I think we borrowed that, the very tall and very short, we borrowed that graphic for our wedding announcement because my wife is a little lady and I'm a tall person. So we borrowed that for our internet wedding announcement. It's fun. We have fun.
No women, no kids.
We're a fun couple. By the way, it wasn't, if I might get pedantic, really, it wasn't, as you know, Kool-Aid. It was Flavor Aid.
Right.
It was the cheap version.
Yeah.
Because they
weren't going to spring for it.
No, it's too expensive. We can't afford Kool-Aid down here.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the isolation of the people down there, physical isolation. You're dealing just with emotional, psychological, and media isolation here. But
hold that one coming back, because we'll deal with that a little bit.
Okay.
We'll be back in 15 seconds. And hi, chat room. Hit the like, share the show, etc. Let me know if you were a Patreon or a member last night. You got to see the show.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
You brought up we have a lot of great conversations during the breaks on the show, and it's nice to know that doesn't even change when we swap out our co-host for the day. Even you were mentioning the fact that at Jonestown, it wasn't even Kool-Aid. It was Flavor Aid, the cheap kind of alternative to it. With Trump, it'll obviously be Crystal Light because it's a bunch of, CrossFit Christians, I guess, are in this. So, but one of the things I want to point out is that when the people at Jonestown drank the Kool-Aid, it was not the first time they had drank the Kool-Aid.
Right. That's right.
Tested these waters by, giving them the Kool-Aid, seeing who would do it and who wouldn't do it. And then everybody lived, and it was like, it was a miracle. Everybody lived because the majority of you actually drank it or something. You saved the ones who didn't. And those people are shunned for a time. Some of them got kicked out. Other ones were, were beaten with reeds and, that kind of stuff. But they did it like 3 times, I think at least, before the big one at the end. And at the end, though, people could tell something was different. People could tell that it, a senator was shot, or a congressman was shot. They, they were things were ratcheting up. So they're like, this is different than the other tests, as it were. And I think that's where we are with the Epstein stuff, is because he's asked them to drink the Kool-Aid on a bunch or the Flavor Aid on a bunch of these different things. But the first one came and it was just a little paper cup with actual, red sugar liquid in it. And they drank it and it was no big deal. And then the next one, it was a little murky, but it was the same stuff and they drank it. And then it became habit. And then with the Epstein stuff, they were brought a frothing, smoking thing in a tin can because it would eat through the paper if they gave it to you in one of those little, mouthwash cups from the dentist. And everybody knows it. And they're just staring at this Epstein Kool-Aid going, it's going to be hard to get down. And some of them are trying. We've seen a couple of them, and they have all obviously transitioned to focus on the wins. And Trump is not just saying it to them in private. He's saying it in public. He's just announcing the plan. You should be talking about these people, right? And before that has worked for him. It is not right now. Something stood out to me. A little announcement in May. I think, in June. On Newsmax's site, they made a little announcement. Right about the time, if you'll recall, May is when allegedly Pam Bondi told Trump he's in the Epstein files. Now we know he's in the Epstein files. And what everybody keeps saying is he's on the list or his name is in the files. They keep using files as if it's written stuff, and I would argue it's pictures and video and, other details, calendar and messages and that.
What is it? 30 something gigabytes. That's not text.
Yeah.
That's not text at all.
Exactly. Yeah. So unless Epstein talked him into being one of his hey, I'll help you cheat on your taxes, and he's got all of Trump's taxes. That's entirely possible too. Here's the thing that stood out to me. This was announced in May at the exact same time. Newsmax Incorporated names Paula Dobronsky and Alex Acosta to their board of directors. Alex Acosta, the guy who gave Epstein the sweetheart deal, said that, allegedly to one person and has never repeated it since, said that Epstein belonged to intelligence, which is just conspiracy theory central, right? That guy was named to the board of directors at Newsmax. By the way, if all of the network, if you look at any of the networks that matter, because Newsmax actually charts, we're not talking about RSBN and RAV or any of that stuff. Newsmax charts, right alongside. Just they're the Burger King to Fox's McDonald's in this regard.
Absolutely. Yep.
And if you want to check, everybody on that network is in line. They have gotten their marching orders. Yep. They are either not addressing it or saying it's nothing on purpose or diverting to it's about somebody else and not about him. They've dropped it entirely. And it is fascinating to me, this particular timing. And I got to say, eventually this is going to work its way up into maggottdom. It's going to make that flavor aid they're being forced to drink that much more murkier, smokier, and smellier.
Ooh.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever steel dossier tape liquid they are being forced to drink, right? Yeah. But this stood out to me. This was like the nerve.
Big red flag.
Yeah, big red flag. So, and then of course we all know that Pam Bondi, she absolutely could have torn up that agreement, which the current, I think, AG tore up. When she got into office, she tore up that agreement. Went, this is just ridiculous. No, I'm not going to not go after his co-defendants because you made a deal with him. What the hell is that, right? If they're criminals and they're in my district, I'm going after them. Pam Bondi could have done that, but she proved her loyalty and did not.
That's right. I would only disagree with one thing, and I'll save that for a minute. It's that the place where I agree is, remember, Newsmax got their bump, came into their own when Fox soured on Trump.
Yeah.
And that and OANN, I think, were the two that suddenly got up there for a while, because suddenly they couldn't get the pure quill, the pure aorta injectable lies from Fox. They were like, maybe Trump's wrong. So they all moved. Right. And I think everybody learned a lesson from that, is that they will go someplace else. They're addicted. They're addicted. And the second thing is, which is where I would slightly disagree, is only that the flavor aid they've been drinking has been on a 40-year trajectory, not an 8-year trajectory.
Sure. They
were accepting lies about Clinton, about Vince Foster, about tan suits, about Hillary Clinton. They were conditioned. They were, if you were, groomed by the entire conservative media complex, abetted by the legacy media that never corrected or challenged this stuff, to the point where they became, and I learned this phrase from my brother this weekend, a spawn bag for Donald Trump. Just a growth medium. So all you had to do was add a little bit of Trump, and all Trump ever had to do was speak to them in their own language, and he just could take over the whole party. So
it's just a room full of manure and grow lights. That's basically what like the desks at Newsmax are just piles of manure and just covered in grow lights. Yeah.
And they have a fixed audience. It's like cigarettes used to be. It's an inelastic audience. They will always come for the drug. And so now the fight is, okay, what's the best drug? Because these people all depend on Trump for their money, all of them. And if Trump goes south or things get weird, that's where you start to see the fracturing, because that's when it's like, okay, Trump's going to be out of office one way or another in a little while. Either he becomes a babbling lunatic and they can't bring him out in public, or he has the hamburger from heaven, or he just drifts off into the sunset and becomes a memory. And then you get the Khrushchev to his Stalin. Right. Yeah. But they're going to have to start making money some other way. So how does the mob break is how the news will break. It used to be the news led the mob. Now the mob leads the news.
Right. Well, in this case, like Laura Loomer was making that case that these people are jumping the train because, you know, they made their bones on Trump's back and now they're trying to find the next grift or whatever. Well, the problem with that is he's still got 3.5 years left in his term. So if you're going to jump ship when he's run out of power, jumping ship right now doesn't look good for him, because that's them admitting he's a lame duck starting now. This is enough to take him down. They are seeing the numbers. They're looking at Rasmussen, that 8 to 12 shave off in numbers. They're looking at their own audience falling apart in front of their very eyes and going, hey, wait a second about this stuff. And there's just no way they can put this toothpaste back in the tube. That is a real problem. It is different. And because it's one of their own causes, that's what I think makes a difference, right? I don't know that they cared about tariffs or, you know, and when they cared about immigration, he's still on the same page with them. It's effectively a placeholder for their own abject racism about people that are even born here. Like, they just don't like the brown people. So they just are, you know, he's great at taking that fear and turning it into something they can say in public, right? Because he will exaggerate the racist aspects of it to a point where it seems acceptable, you know, where it was absolutely not before. And he converts it into, well, it's the illegals, right? And they're coming over here and they're addicts and monsters and they're from asylums and yada, yada. So he throws that to them, and that gives them a lot of room to be awful and to speak freely. That's where the whole, like, he talks just like us thing comes from. That's very different to the Epstein thing. It's very different because they were on... these are competing trains. These, like I've been saying, there are two trains that have left the station on the same piece of track, and they are headed towards each other, and there is no diverting these things. One is Trump is in these files, was friends with this dude for a quarter century. They didn't break up because he was a creep. They broke up over a real estate deal. It is arguable, and this was Epstein's belief, that Trump turned him in. He was one of the people that phoned in, and that nothing happened because Trump also was the guy that tipped him off, hey, the cops are onto you, so that he could get in his graces, keep your enemies closer, something he learned from Roy Cohn. You know, I mean, it's an old, like, it's an undercover trick. Just, you know, you know, you're connected to the police, you know when the raid is happening, you tell your handler inside the organization that the raid is coming, or you heard it on the grapevine, and now you get deeper in. You're more trusted.
This is Whitey Bulger's entire, business plan
methodology,
in Boston. Exactly. I'm a rat out selected people to the FBI. I'll be their source, but I get to keep doing my dirt.
And Trump was like a student of that whole thing when it was happening. And of course, that was also during his former attorney and buddy, who he never pays, Rudy Giuliani, whose entire job, I personally believe, was to broom the Italian mob out. He being Italian, it allowed him to do it with some plausible deniability for the people behind it. Broom the Italian mob out so the Russians and the Chinese could move in. And then they would supply him with security contracts all over Europe and Asia in exchange for that after he left office. And Trump was, I mean, they were sitting around smoking cigars and saying, hey, baby, to each other in smoke-filled rooms, the old-fashioned, and at the same time, he's still friends with Epstein during this time, the height of this stuff. So we got to take a break. We're right up at the edge of the next break. But I do want to talk about some of the pictures that came out There is other news to talk about too, because Hegseth is finally getting, the stink on him is getting so high. I think to save Bondi, there might be a chance that if you got to kick somebody out, it might be Hegseth, and he swaps him out for somebody who's maybe more loyal. So that story's coming about. And then there's, of course, this, because it's the generals who don't like him, which is a big part of this. And Doge has built an AI to cut regulations, and they want to cut 50% of them. There's a problem, though. They can't. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, the thing is, you can't just cut them and let them go. They have to be replaced with something. You have to sign on. There's actual business that has to be done. And if they create an AI that does that business automatically, that subverts the separation of powers, because Congress has to be involved.
Right.
It's so weak.
Well,
yeah, they're calling it the Doge AI deregulation decision tool. And these guys are marketing geniuses.
God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you about a tradition at the city of Chicago under Richie Daley that bears on this, if you'd like to afterwards. But it's interesting. I learned it when I worked for the city. So not criminal, but inside strategy.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, I talked to Richard Chu at the show, and I had a great time afterwards talking Chicago politics with him.
Great dude.
Great guy.
Yeah. Love Richard. Everybody needs to check out his show mornings on WCPT. Hi. Good morning. Hey, Boston Brian. What's going on, man? And Philip Bittner will be joining us in the second part of the show, and we'll keep you on for that if you can stay on. That'd be great. I was assuming so, but
I might have to pay. No, kidding.
Yeah, right. I ought to have to pay. I believe he said he had to pay.
Stand by, coming back in 5.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So the overall story of this, like, that there's going to be some sort of quid pro quo, and that she's going to name a bunch of people, and maggots going to be able to go, I told you so. It's 100 names, Bill Gates and Bill Clinton over and over and over again, right? Or a bunch of new people to chase down. Trump said, what about the hedge fund guys that he was after? That, I think, is Trump with foreknowledge, with Todd Blanche calling him and saying, here's some guys you can throw to the wolves because we don't need them. And, and they'll, if they're going to release the whole list of 100 names, and also, even in that case, like, if Trump's name isn't on it, it's ridiculous. If his name is on it, they'll say, well, then there's a bunch of other innocent people on here, and it's a useless list, right? Mm-hmm. That's the problem that they have. But, I really feel like this is really about a conversation, like, keep your mouth shut. You don't have to lie, but you can, hold back stuff or say you don't remember things. And then on our way out the door, we'll set you free. Because we got nothing to lose. We don't owe MAGA anything after this is over. Donald Trump has moved on from MAGA. This is all about feathering his nest financially afterwards, making sure that he has a kingdom financially after this is over.
This is the diehard strategy, which is we loot the building and then blow it up.
Yeah.
And nobody will come after us because whoever the next president is going to have so much rubble to clean up and so much disaster and so much chaos to deal with. We'll make a clean getaway. And that's the plan. The plan is to rip the place off as much as you can, then scoot out the back door as you burn the place down.
Right.
And so far, so good.
Well, I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. Because that big group of Epstein fans that are in MAGA love sifting through rubble. If you could argue there was one defining characteristic of QAnon, it's sifting through rubble and feeling, whether they found anything or not, putting patterns together, fixating on shapes of chunks of rubble going, I don't know, that looks a lot like little St. James, that little chunk right there, that must have been part of something important, right? And look, I do believe that we have a couple of things that we need to do, and I'm going to work on them over the, after I haven't, because I drove back from LA last night after my show at Flappers. So this is not something I'm going to do right after the show, because we're going to go see Fantastic Four. So I've got to have a nap in between, or I will miss most of the movie. But we need to make a graphic that changes the name of the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, to the Gulf of Epstein didn't kill himself. And then I think my theory is that Donald Trump wants to take over Greenland and rename it really big St. James Island. That's yeah. And
if I have one big prayer, it's that the people who are combing through the Epstein files, looking to exonerate Donald Trump, are unaware that he goes under the name of John Barron as well. So they'll let the hundreds of references to John Barron slide, and like, we got him, Clinton, we got him, we got Prince Andrew, and this John Barron guy, man, we nailed him. And that's when the phone call rings, and you go,
oh my God,
I gotta go away for a minute. Yeah,
right. Well, and I want to say John Barron wasn't the only name he used. It would be hilarious if two of his fake names showed up in the list of 100 names, right?
Well, apparently a bunch of his phone numbers are in there. A bunch of his former and current phone numbers and so are all over the place. So, patterns.
Well, and again, the guy has his primary residences. He's never lived more than a 9-minute cab ride from Jeffrey Epstein. And the idea that there's just this conduit between West Palm Beach and New York City that just is a happy accident. That, Epstein, has his house down there, and Trump buys Mar-a-Lago and moves into it as a home, which it is not. It's an event space. And he's living in the attic, like Howard Hughes, going mad, peeing in mason jars and growing his nails out, which is the future that is ahead of him, by the way. So I guess the question is do you think, because everybody's like, Doge, or like, MAGA's just going to move on from this, and I got to say, I just feel like they can't. Not this one. Not this. This is different.
This is that there's a cathedral in Mexico, the name escapes me, where people walk on their knees for miles to get there, and because it's a sacred holy spot. And I don't. My apologies. I don't remember. I think maybe the Virgin of Guadalupe, but I'm not sure. But the theory is you approach with great humility. Your knees are bleeding, and you go in, and MAGA has been approaching this cathedral for a decade or more. And now Donald Trump's going to open the door and say, "You're all stupid. You're all foolish. There is no God. Go away." I don't think they're going to settle for that. I don't think a whole bunch of them will. A whole bunch of them will just say, "Well, he's the Pope. He knows what he's talking about." But a whole bunch of them are going to go, "No."
Well, and by the way, are the ones who are doing that, like, I think there are some true believers in that crowd. I think there's some true believers that will say, absolutely not. He's an innocent man, and like there's Roseanne or whoever else, the people who where Trump is a fever dream for them. Arguably Greg Kelly on Newsmax. Everybody else is doing it because they're being told to by their bosses, or because Trump world is saying, if you want any future in right-wing media without us tearing you to pieces, you better get on board. And there's a danger to that. Because you have to have, and this is where Putin finds himself to some degree, you have to have the power to implement that threat. Right?
That's right.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, there is historical precedent for this, believe it or not. The Tom DeLay, once upon a time, there was a guy named Tom DeLay, terribly corrupt, evil human being, had the entire Republican Party's huevos in a Crown Royal bag, right? He was the hammer. He could tell them what to do. And then he started to lose power. He started to slip away. And the whole party had this problem, which is, how fast do we jump away from this fallen man? Because if we jump too soon, he will destroy us. If we jump too late, we become him in every commercial forever. And I think elected officials and MAGA influencers and all those people are trying to make the same calculation, which is they don't know which way this is going to go.
And that's what Lumer's calling out. Whether she knows it or not.
Every number on the table. And they don't know how to react. So they're doing the thing that they always do, which is play for time, tap dance, make up stuff. It's Obama's corruption. Obama's a traitor, and Bill Clinton, and like we care if Bill Clinton goes to prison. If Clinton broke the law, he should go to jail, and that's what every Democrat I know thinks, which is we're the law and order people, for God's sake.
None of us actually care about anybody who, like, I don't defend wolves in sheep's clothing because I care that much about sheep. If you pretended to be something and you're not that thing, you're not going to let me sell my ethics down the river to protect you. That's not how it works. If we find out that you were lying about your character, your ethics on that high a scale where there's no coming back, then to hell with you. And every Democrat seems to be on the same page about this. Republicans are vacillating. It's awkward. You've got, hardcore maggots who, on the one hand, were ready to buck the president about the budget and the debt, but somehow they're coming to his rescue in committee about Epstein, right?
Well, some of them are. Some of them, this is, Mike Johnson had to dismiss class early just to get him out of town so he wouldn't take that vote, because that vote was not going to go his way. He can at least count votes, and that vote was not going to go his way.
Right.
And the boss rang him up and said, get him the hell out of town. Get him, and which is great, because that leaves the entire rest of the summer and September for us to talk about this every day.
Just
every
stew
single
on
day.
it, right. And that there's no way that goes away during this time. And I know they think it's going to. They think, I think they believe the Maxwell stuff is going to be the big bomb that makes it go away. Like, they're going to do this. They're going to throw some red meat about a couple of people or talk about it, and then they'll go, but there's nothing in there to prosecute them. We just know that she talked about him, and we're not going to give her a pardon right now. Wink, wink. And she's going to keep her mouth shut. Case closed. And her attorney will whether there's a direct quid pro quo, he doesn't have to answer to it. He can lie about it because it's on her behalf, right? He's her client, or she's his client, so he can pretend all he wants that they didn't make a deal. If he knows, hey, we're getting you out in 3 years, he's going to do it. He'll do it the beginning of his last year because he doesn't care, right? And he'll make it the next Republican's problem. And Vance can disagree with it. He'll get points for disagreeing, right? That's the thing. This is where they'll split and they'll allow him to go off or whatever. But that's yes. And Ali Ocean in our chat saying that's why Maxwell is called to kill Epstein files and save Trump's presidency. I agree. That's why they're doing it.
Right.
I just don't think it's going to work. I honestly don't. Yeah.
We refer to this at the Professional podcast as stupid Watergate. This is stupid Watergate. This is Watergate, even when the dumb people are exponentially dumber than they were in Watergate. You've got tapes, you've got lies, you've got the President of the United States, in this case, shoving his Ron Ziegler at the time, his press secretary out in front of the microphone saying, basically, go defend me. He's ordering his people to stop talking about things that they're not going to stop talking about. And there's just too much stuff on the other side. And they're now trying to do the John Dean thing, which is, isolate these people and come back and you tell me what went on, because I didn't know anything about it. And they're trying to make her that person. And I would remind Ghislaine Maxwell that, 3 years in prison is a long time.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein didn't make it 3 months after he
didn't make it
the
3 missing minutes.
Exactly. And there's even missing time on the tape, just like Watergate. So
yes,
this is
right.
stupid Watergate.
And I would okay. So for those people that don't know or are late to catch up to that part, they released this 10-hour tape, which is supposed to quell MAGA, and that's it's a great example of how this isn't going to work. All of it's going to happen like this. This list of 100 people, whatever she says, is going to have the same gaps in it, because these people that have been following Trump, they know too much about it. They know the details. They've been living the details because in their mind, they believe this is how we're going to scoop up Bill Clinton, who, by the way, served office till 2000 and has not been in office ever since. His wife didn't engage in these crimes, never suggested that she did. He might be on the plane, the flight logs. She didn't. So the idea, I guess, is that she stood by him or didn't know or whatever. Now, he obviously kept affairs from her before, right? So the idea that he still did or whatever is not that strange idea. But again, the idea that a wife is on the hook for what her husband does philandering behind her back is another form of misogyny. You know what the new word on the street from Alex Jones and that crowd about Monica Lewinsky is? Mossad agent. I kid you not.
Well, you and I are both Mossad agents. I mean, everyone's a Mossad agent, right?
Yeah,
Everyone.
I mean,
so,
yeah.
We're not allowed to talk about it. This isn't going out live or anything, but yeah, we're not allowed to talk about that.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's anybody who bought a box of Cracker Jacks anytime between 1976 and 1984 in there, was the Mossad decoder ring and your Mossad of the Month club, which is you get a new jelly and a new assignment every month. But for real, that's the story now, and that story is crucial.
They have certain code. The Winter Soldier code book is how we talk about it. They have certain keywords that they press, and right now Trump's just like a child on an elevator slapping every button. Just got to fire everything. What do we got? They hate Obama. They hate the scary black man. Fire that. Oh, they hate Clinton. Fire that. Mossad, and he's shooting everything he's got because some like ketchup in the White House. Something's got to stick, and something's got to get these people off my back, and it's not working because this is their one true faith, and he's attacking their one true faith.
I'll tell you why it isn't working. Because Epstein is the wall. Because you're throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, and Epstein is the wall. You built this entire wall. That's genuinely why. And and no matter what you throw against it, it's not going to cover the whole wall. It can't, because it's the singular fixation, and it is endless for some people. For some people, it's a relatively uniform size wall, but it's still there and it's not moving, and you can't cover it in ketchup no matter how many packets you throw. But for other people, it is the monolith in 2001, or a towering wall from Monty Python cartoons. Like it goes on forever, and it has to, because nothing else makes sense without it. Now, again, these are also people who believe that Jeffrey Epstein's wingman and best friend for 25 years is uniquely suited to bring him down when he didn't for a quarter century. And when he gets in, his DOJ, who, by the way, his first choice was a guy who had to leave Congress because of allegations of human trafficking. That was his first choice for AG. Second choice of AG is the actual AG from Florida, who didn't tear up Alex Acosta's deal and go after Jeffrey Epstein while he was still victimizing girls in the state continually for, at least 6 years of her term, right? Bring her back in. And then it brings in Kash Patel and Bongholio, and both of them, and says, who have built, if they built their stuff on anything, it's Jan 6 and Epstein. These two things, and Jan 6 solved, gone, not even an issue anymore. They would arguably it'd be better if they spent more time trying to get the Jan 6ers out. But now that they've released them, and a bunch of them are having to be arrested for sexually assaulting minors or attempting to murder the people in their family that turned them in, because that's over. The Jan 6 thing is like a win that they just check the box on. They're stuck now.
Promises kept, man.
Yeah, they've got two guys who are now single issue heat-seeking missiles about Epstein. Do you
remember the line from Watchmen, the movie? I think it's Haley Joel Osment. I could be wrong about that. He's going nuts in the line in the prison. Said, "I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me."
Oh yeah,
and Trump is locked in here.
Rorschach.
He's locked into this. Yeah, that's right. He's locked in with these people. He can't get out. He built this prison for himself, and there's no escape from it. And I'm just, other than the fact that behind all of this is a horrendous historic crime committed against innocent people, thousands harmed, thousands implicated for all I know. The crime itself is almost too monstrous to contemplate. But the people who are now using it as a political bludgeon, or were for years, and are now trapped in their own lie, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I don't know what's going to break, but I do know these people are human. They're dumb, and they make mistakes all the time. And we just need to be there to capitalize on every mistake they make.
Absolutely. Because, again, this is one of those that will not take a lot of work. We've got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega, worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Dude, I like the fun part is watching the right-wing media sphere, meltdowns in such a way because the stuff is so on the nose. Watching them try to repack it and walk it back, it's just so embarrassing. You're asking so much of them, and they're weak and self-involved egomaniacs to start with, right? So the idea that they're gonna
the one thing they learned over the course of backing Bush and attacking Biden and Obama, et cetera, is that if they just change their name, they will never be. They believe they should never be held accountable for anything, and they have 30 years of history proving that the Republican base is never accountable for anything. Is never held to account for anything. They can just put on funny hats and call themselves a Tea Party, and they had nothing to do with Bush, and they just move on. And I think a lot of them really believe they're going to survive this because this is how the world works. We lie, we crap all over everything. Democrat comes in and cleans up some of our mess, and we get away with it. That's how things work. I don't think it works that way anymore because I think Democrats are learning to grow teeth and spikes and starting to learn how to attack, which is glorious.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, thank you. I don't. Well, again, I think they're asking too much to rescind this stuff. I mean, look at this. Tucker Carlson. Epstein cover-up is out of control.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Infotainmentwars.com is a great place to subscribe to my live stream, which happens daily. And of course, if you're on Twitch, twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. And if you're on Substack, I'm on there, the Hal Sparks Substack Mega Worldwide. And our guest filling in today, for Johnny Million, as he is away for a birthday trip with Mrs. Million to see an Orioles game, I believe, or training camp, or to, I don't know, run around. I don't know. Honestly, it's none of my business. I stay out of his birthday business, which is that's what friends really do. Driftglass from the Professional Left podcast. Please check it out, subscribe, etc., etc., etc. Links and everything to be found, of course, at crooksandliars.com. I have to say, there are a few people, they lost big time early on in this. And I got to say, there are a couple of areas where Epstein may not be it was the straw that broke the camel's back. It may not be the singular thing that drove them away. But they realized the lies were stacking up. Yes, Hegseth is a drunk and should not have released attack plans. That is classified. Like the defense IG put out a statement. Yes, that is obviously classified. If you're about to launch an attack and you put those attack plans on a civilian app, yes, that's exactly what he did. And in on Earth One, this dude would have been out on his, on his gin fizz buttocks, instantly. So that stacks, but they pocket it. They just swallow it, kind of like this. It might be that they can't drink this final Epstein Flavor Aid because they are so full already. Like that old Murray Langstrom, the unknown comic, where he would take a beer off somebody's table during his show, drink it, the whole thing down, and then tilt back down, and all the beer would go back into the thing because he'd just be holding it in his throat and in his mouth, and he'd go, "Sorry, I'm full," and put their glass back down on the table. That's where they are. They're full.
Well,
they are.
If you've ever made rock candy as a kid with sugar water and string and a pencil, there's a point at which it starts to crystallize. There's a point at which the water is so saturated it can't do anything other than reform a hard surface around something else, and this is the something else. Yeah,
right. But they've also been lying to themselves, aware of it. Some of them happily. Some of them, you lie for Jesus to bring the end times around quicker. But then others he's making me lie for him again. And Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, people like that are those people because they know their ego is more important to them than Donald Trump. And they can make money off of a certain group, or they have enough money already. I mean, Tucker Carlson is worth right now somewhere between $420 million and $2 billion. The least he's worth is is just under $500 million. That's the least he could be worth. He's more like two, and he's got a ton of investments and all kinds of other stuff. So he doesn't need Trump to be successful in this situation. As a matter of fact, if he can start having an impact on MAGA and the voting, which will impact the market and all this other stuff, into next year, he can actually predict or control certain elements of the stock market going slightly down and slightly up again, those kind of things, and he can capitalize on it. He can go, all right, next week I'm going to really let him have it, and it's going to be about Palantir. So, what we'll do is we'll short Palantir stock. It won't go down a lot, but I know it'll go down a certain amount. It did it the last 2 times, and it'll do it again. And they know this. And you can make if you're investing that kind of money, you can make a couple of $1 million
overnight.
Yeah, every time you do it. And so they don't need Trump for this. They just can use him. So I guess the big question everybody has, and I see it coming up in the, before we get to the bottom of the hour, and our dear friend Philip Ittner is going to be joining us from Kyiv. Hopefully he's gotten more sleep than I did. I don't see how that's not possible, considering I got next to none. But President Vance, this is the big fear that everybody has. And I have my thoughts on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the result of, them, 25th Amendment. Trump has yet another in a series of ischemic strokes or whatever happened to him that made him be on an aspirin regimen at this age in his life, because you have to have to be recommended that you be on aspirin therapy. You have to have had a heart attack or a stroke already at his age. Otherwise, the downside is too high. Or his dementia kicks in, or they really do have enough of the Epstein thing and insist he gets kicked to the curb because it's just the committees start rolling and they can't do anything about it. Comer has to bring.
Good of the country.
Yeah. Yes.
For the good of the country, he resigns. My enemies are too strong. I fought the good fight. I did all I could. I saved America, but it's too much. I can't put my family, who I love dearly, through this anymore. So for the good of the country, I'm stepping aside and
flying to Russia.
Flying to Russia immediately.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future. And Paul's saying Peter Thiel will have his way. Yes, that's the biggest, scariest thing about J.D. Vance, is that J.D. Vance will be a sock puppet for Peter Thiel, who can't decide whether the human race should survive, and believes that he's fighting the Antichrist with defense technology. I mean, just deluded billionaire sociopath. But does Vance have what it takes to marshal MAGA like Trump did? Does anybody?
No. First of all, there's a miles difference, worth of difference between you lied to me and you lied to me and made me look stupid in front of the liberals.
Yes.
That's the cardinal sin Bush committed, was you made me look like an idiot in front of those America-hating, terrorist-loving scum. And for that, I cannot forgive you. So that's the problem. They're looking dumb in front of us, and they can't bear that. So after Stalin comes Khrushchev. You need a character who can step in and say, we all weep bitter tears for our fallen hero who saved the country, but let us move on now. There needs to be someone who has the media savvy and a constituency big enough to get away with that.
Right.
And there will be Democrats. I'm hoping my governor may be one of them, probably not. California governor, any governor, running a knives out, bare teeth, I'm going for the jugular campaign during the entire presidential. Just Trump. Everything is Trump all the way down the pipe. But Tucker Carlson has the money. He has the constituency. He has an independent media platform. He has all the things you need that Trump had. He has exactly what Trump had. He has an audience, he has money, and he has influence over the Republican Party.
Right.
And I don't see anybody, because nobody's going to run against Trump's record. Nobody's going to say Trump was a mistake and we bamboozled you idiots.
Right.
And congratulations. So you have to move on the wave that you've got. And the wave that you've got is, okay, our dear leader has fallen. We will celebrate him and move on. And we move on how? What's the issue? Well, it's going to be the same issues as always. It's going to be racism, bigots, stupids, and guns, and I don't know, America as mandatory language, and flags. The liberals love to burn flags.
Yeah.
So it'll be something like, and it'll be
Sure.
somebody like Tucker Carlson. And I'd love to see that fight because I'm rooting for injuries in the next Republican primary.
Yeah, well, that's and again, the problem that they have is that these are very distinct fractures. These are not your run of the mill political differences about methodology. You're not talking about the ACA to get to single payer by introducing single payer in its later years, if we can shepherd it through to eventually a form of bonding with Medicaid, Medicare, to where we have universal health care, which was the goal of the ACA from the start, knowing that you'd have to. Just like civil unions to gay marriage, like you have to bring the public along, and they were aware of this, versus somebody who was like, nope, you just vote for it, and if it falls apart, who cares? We got to take a break. We'll be back right after the news over the break, and then Philip Bittner will be joining us from Kyiv, and we'll continue with Driftglass after this.
Excellent.
Yeah, nice.
Is going the way you wanted?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So to keep myself awake on these long drives back, I have to be fascinated by what I'm either listening to or is playing in the background. And I put on a lot of like YouTube videos and just listen to them, like radio. I'll turn off my phone and just listen to them like a podcast. And I had been interested, in like I make a lot of pervitin jokes about the Republicans and Trump's, Adderall and, benzo diet that, may have shifted around because it'll conflict with the medication that he does. He needs to like soften his catheter. But hold on one second. We'll do this. I'm going to put him in here. That's this one. Go to here and oops. That one.
Yeah, Philip's a hero in our house.
Excellent. Hold on, we go to here, and there he is. He was there, but he'll be back in just a second. Excellent. And then I'll go to two guests. Oh, there he is. Look at that. And now I just got to turn off the other box. Look at that.
The Bald Bearded Men program. Excellent.
You can't go wrong.
No, nay.
You can't go wrong. Yeah. Cool. And then I think I'll move you up a little bit. There you go. Whoop. There we go. That's aesthetically more pleasing. All right.
There we go.
What's happening, Phil? Can you hear us okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, we're hearing room noise, not your mic, so I don't know if that's a thing. That sounds like a microphone. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's see. Okay. Now I got to get I'm going to open my Telegram thing, which is
Sorry, I've got a delivery coming and he's taking his own sweet time, so I might. Are we live or what? Where are we?
Not yet. We're not there yet. Yeah, we're still.
Okay.
We still got to
literally coming up my lift, I think.
Look out.
At least
you got time. Don't worry about it. We'll cover for you. We're fine. You know me. Thanks. I can yammer.
Yeah.
I have the gift of go on and on and on.
So what YouTubes are you listening to?
Oh, so I was watching this documentary about the origins of Pervitin, which was like this old documentary that they had made about the Nazis using methamphetamines, and it's so well. We'll talk about that later. It was fascinating. I'll send you the link. It explains so much and a lot of MAGA overlap.
Video streaming at housesparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So, welcome back to the show. Joining us from Kyiv is our dear friend Philip Ittner, host of On the Edge, a great show that has a new episode tomorrow. Every Sunday they put one out. Just like, by the way, our dear friend Boston Brian, you can do kind of a twofer on Sundays. You can watch Philip's video that drops and Boston Brian's live stream. It will be entertaining and educational on so many fronts. And sticking with us for the second hour, filling in for Johnny Million, who's away on a birthday trip, is our dear friend Driftglass from the Professional Left podcast, which you should subscribe to. And I think Blue Gal is off camera, hanging out. She's talking into your ear, right? You got an earbud, and she's giving you all the good lines.
I don't know anything at all. I'm just a conduit for Blue Gal's wisdom,
sure.
So as it should be. Yeah,
that's smart. Yeah. But she uses it's like Remington Steel. She just uses a man as a front.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's smart. In this day
better, but this is what she's got. This is what I'm what she has to work with. So
right. So first of all, Phil, I know that there was an anniversary of Euromaidan that may have sort of. That happened, and we can revisit some of the history about that to remind everybody, because it's kind of tied up in this whole like looking back over the Kool-Aid that the maggots have been forced to drink or have chosen to drink over the last few years. One of them being that one of the most horrible characters, one of the most Nazi characters in Euromaidan and in the killing of protesters during Euromaidan was a guy named Paul Manafort, who hoped his work with Donald Trump would make him whole with the Russians, for debts he had with them. And he went to work. He offered his work for free again to Trump this time around. He was, he lasted about, he helped with the RNC, and then he lasted about a month, at least overtly. Behind the scenes, he might be working the phones as far as we know, but he's not the face of it like he was before. But he was the guy who concocted the idea of using agents provocateur in the crowd, put snipers in the towers and on the rooftops, and then this was his idea. He pitched this, and they did it. Start a fight. We'll radio them, hey, throw some stuff, and then run away, and we'll give you a couple seconds, and then we'll start shooting. And his own daughters don't talk to him anymore, both for that reason, because they know about this. They know that their money is blood money, and for what he did to their mother, who was disabled in a car accident, and he would hire men off of Craigslist to have sex with her when she could not say no. And he would watch Diddy style from a corner. So Manafort is particularly awful on his own before Trump hires him. And then, dude who's friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and says in a newspaper, I want to say in 2002 or 3, if Puff Daddy is having a party, who do you think he calls? If he's having and what he meant was a party in New York City, who do you think he calls?
Yeah.
Trump. He was like, he calls me. I helped set it up because the plaza is wired for sound, and it's got all the surveillance in all the rooms like he wants, and we can gather up all the compromise we want. So a guy like that, who's friends with Sean Combs, and a guy who was in deep with Epstein, and Paul Manafort, who is ranks right with all three of them. Hideous human being.
Manafort is in my opinion, a pretty detestable human being.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was hired to work with, to kind of campaign and work with Viktor Yanukovych, who was the Moscow-backed leader
the
here.
The sock puppet.
In Ukraine. Right, the sock puppet for Moscow, and the one who was going to drag Ukraine back into Moscow's sphere of influence and control by some pretty, we talk about the violence and the despicable, the decision to, put snipers on rooftops here and kill over 100 protesters who, it had the Maidan was pretty violent, but that was a whole other level. And that was the thing I think that broke the country. And that's why the Rada, the parliament, legally under the Ukrainian constitution gathered and kicked him out of office. It was done 100% by the law legally. And I mean, this is the conspiracy theorists who say it was all CIA backed, and then Yanukovych was ousted in an illegal kind of way, and that makes every other subsequent Ukrainian administration, null and void. And he also was corrupting the system, flooding it with money, doing all the information warfare, a lot of really nasty stuff to political opposition and journalists and things like that. So Manafort was behind so much of that and was an advisor to Yanukovych when all of that was going on. And so, yeah, not a good guy, and definitely someone who led to the bloodshed on the Maidan.
And you remember when Manafort was a younger man, the firm he was associated with, the company he kept, Roger Stone and Lee Atwater.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been evil forever, and associating and winding himself around evil people forever. And that's why he's found roots, in the Republican Party and in all the things Philip just said.
And also why I think Roger Stone and all that crowd have Russian compromat all over the place on them. There are Russian agents, enablers, handlers, all of that runs through all of that crowd. And that's why when I hear the Russia, Russia, Russia meme to be dismissive of what is a serious attack on our body politic, it makes my blood boil.
Yeah. And one of the things that Trump brings up is this whole Obama gave them sheets and Trump gave them javelins. Never bothering to point out that there was different leadership at different points during that. The reason Obama gave them sheets led to the fact that they were able to not use those weapons on their own people, and which they would have, and they eventually, I guess, they had real elections, and to the point where Zelensky got elected, and you could give them offensive weapons without worrying that they would use them on their own people the way they would have been used under Yanukovych. I know a bit about the Yanukovych fleeing, and I know that Putin said, yes, he asked to be driven away, but the story of where he's being charged or he's being deposed by the Rada, the parliament there, and then he gets in a private plane, which is grounded before he can leave the country, and then they put him in a car and they drive him, in a disguise to another location. And I don't know if it was a helicopter that they took him.
Put him in a chopper. It was a chopper. Flew him over to Rostov-on-Don.
Yeah, into Russia, the town that that at one point, the what's his name, the guy who blew up in the airplane.
At Prigozhin.
Yeah, Prigozhin's guys
famously took it. It's the military hub for kind of the southern district of Russia, which included the border with Ukraine. So that's
and Yanukovych is living there like Assad, under the protection of the Kremlin. The guy that Obama gave sheets to ended up fleeing the country and living in the safety of Russia. And Putin has said, he has to be removed from the country. He has to for us to protect him. This was the whole thing about. Whoops, hold on. Sorry, my bad. That Yanukovych fled Ukraine with only hand luggage. Was the story? This is his house, by the way. It's
he had money. He had money squirreled away in Russia.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. But yes, then when
because it looks like the Oval Office.
Yes,
they all seem to have the same kind of. Aside from the fact they have Russian influence running through them, they also have really bad taste.
Yes, they all have gold French aristocracy. Yeah.
But it was like storming the Versailles. I remember that because I was on Maidan, and I remember going out there to Yanukovych's. It really is like a Versailles. It's his palace. He built a lake, a small lake pond on his grounds, and he put a fake pirate ship on it that he turned into this kind of like a guest home kind of kitchen and dining area and that kind of stuff. And it was tacky.
The last person to do that was Nero, I think, in Rome. Making a fake
literally.
Yeah, that's
It was
insane.
it was like Disney. It was like Disney. It was this bizarre like Pirates of the Caribbean like knockoff.
Yeah.
It was
Well, he
he was
fled. So allegedly, Yanukovych stole about $100 billion from Ukraine during his time and fled. Even though he's saying I fled with the clothes on my back. They had this other like airplane bringing like paintings and like big wardrobes full of suits and that kind of stuff, right?
one other really quick thing about his palace on the outskirts of Kiev is interestingly enough for us Americans, the guys who stormed that place and grabbed everything that wasn't nailed down, many of them were smart enough to collect his like documents. And they found what was called the Black Book. And in the Black Book, there were payments to Manafort and a couple of others.
Ledger, the ledger,
the
right.
ledger. It was his ledger, and it shows the payments out to like Manafort and some other shady guys who were here working to undermine the Ukrainians and kind of push Moscow's influence. It's just the whole thing is just riddled with so much.
So there was something like $12 million that that he had, or $13 million almost, that he had paid to Paul Manafort for the work that he did over there, helping choose which Ukrainians.
And then Manafort
to shoot.
didn't take any more. Yeah, and then Manafort didn't take any money from
Trump
being Trump on the campaign.
All work for free, like.
Well, that's the same. That's the same grip that Trump's running now, which is his followers. Like he's not taking any salary, he's not taking any money. He's just looting the country for billions of dollars. But he's turning his pittance back in to fool the rubes.
Right, and I would also argue I would like proof that he's actually doing it, because he made one big show of it in the first term of turning his money back over, and then after that we didn't. After that, they didn't bother to even bring it up again. And I'm like, I think he took it and then wrote it off. Let's take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Our dear friend Philip Ittner is here, host of On the Edge. New episode tomorrow. We'll be back right after this. I got like the one big, I think the overlap in stories this week is the fact that in the Ron Wyden story, that Epstein filtered a bunch of money through Russian banks. Thank you. Let's see.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
One of the things that we, where I think our two worlds cross with Philip and what we were talking about in the first hour is the fact that in his final hours, and there's a lot of parallels between this and Yanukovych. Yanukovych apparently moved $32 billion in cash out of Ukraine in his final month in office as he was being, driven from office and all this stuff. He was still shuffling money out of the country for himself, feathering his nest, as it were. Now, I hope and I imagine that money has been scooped up by Putin to pay for the war right now, and in a wonderful irony, and is just been burned through. I suppose buying North Korean arms and Iranian Shahed drones and whatnot. But in the week before his death, Ron Wyden has put out this report because he's on he's the ranking Dem on the Finance Committee, and he's put out this report, and he came out on the floor and talked about this, that in his, the week before he died, Jeffrey Epstein shuffled a bunch of money around through Russian banks, about $1.1 billion through Russian banks that had currently not, because Trump was slow walking it, been sanctioned, or was even pulling them back in some cases. So he was able to do this. It wasn't, again, as much as this Mossad talk we've heard, he didn't run it through, Israeli banks. He didn't run it through the Bank of Cyprus, where, other Trump former cabinet members worked. He didn't run it through the Caymans. He didn't turn it into Bitcoin and then flip it back. This is not the 90s. This was just a few years ago. This is 2019. He transferred it to Russian banks for it to be transferred somewhere else, and it just dropped off the radar. Wherever it went after that, who knows? And then I'm sure they sliced off, a piece for themselves, and the rest of it was able to be put in a bank account or turned into gold bullion or whatever his deal was. And so there's this is part of that ongoing attack we talk about. Like, Russia is actively fighting the United States. They are engaged, and they have been for a very long time. I know you're not all in on my theory that 92 was a rope-a-dope, but every day seems to prove that it was always for show.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying about 91, 92, and the collapse of the Soviet Union, and that there was a security and intelligence apparatus that the second the Soviet Union fell was starting to work out a plan. I think where you and I disagree is that the collapse of the Soviet Union itself was part of a rope-a-dope. I thought
they couldn't help it, and so I think they were like, we can't win this out. We're on our way to collapsing, so let's pretend to be friends. The whole they took perestroika, which I think under Gorbachev was a real thing, and then I think they weaponized it and turned it into a front.
Well, and I think they lost. I think they lost at the tail end of the Soviet Union. They didn't anticipate on Yeltsin, getting up on that tank, which was completely performative, but nevertheless, I think it took everybody by surprise. I think everybody knew the Soviet Union, especially those working inside the Soviet Union, knew that the wheels were about to come off the bus. But I think they were taken by surprise with the actual events of what caused the final nail in the coffin. Again, returning to the idea, however, that I do think it's entirely possible that there was these guys like Putin from the security and intelligence apparatus in Russia. They were, the second it happened, they were already planning on it. Yeah. And you're right. They consider themselves to be at war with the United States, and they have done for a very, very, very long time. Well over a decade, probably more like 2. And, the problem that I have and the frustration that I have, and I share this with our guest on this week's episode of On the Edge, which is the amazing British journalist from The Guardian, Luke Harding, who saw all of this along with me, is that we are so myopic sometimes, especially in the United States, that we don't consider that the people are acting of their own accord, and the Kremlin and Moscow have been waging a war against us for a very, very long time. Whether or not we recognize we're in a war with Russia, it's well overdue time that we all wake up and realize that we may not have been, we didn't start it. We have been lackluster participants, but we are in an open conflict with Russia because Russia believes it's in an open conflict with us. We need to start acting accordingly.
Yeah.
I've said it. I've been saying that for years.
Yes.
Nobody's been listening.
And right. And my argument, has been that I think they found this opportunity to be it remind again, I hate when we go into sports talk or pop culture, but sometimes it just calls for it. One of my favorite movies, and rest his soul, Val Kilmer, we miss him very much, is The Saint, because of that one scene where he's breaking into the Kremlin by to get this chip in the very beginning of it that he's been sent for, and he pulls out his little lockpick to lock the window because it's 1992 or whatever. He puts the lockpick in the window, and the window just opens, because it wasn't locked at all. And he's like, I love this country. And because it was falling apart and people weren't paying attention. But the character of Tretiak is, has all the language that would be Putin's language a decade later or 8 years later. Now, whether he borrowed it from that because he liked the movie or thought the guy just missed out because, his problem was having a beard or something, or a gnarly coked out kid or whatever his Achilles heel was, didn't matter. The language about we're going to reform Russia, not the USSR, not the Soviet Socialist Republic, but Russia as an identity. And ever since then, we've been hearing about Ruski Mir, the Russian world. The rest of the world is Russia. They just don't know it yet. And we will feed into... Go ahead.
Sorry, I mean, he famously said, 2 months ago, wherever a Russian puts his boot, a Russian soldier places his boot, that is Russia.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's his mentality.
That's straight Roman conquest.
Yes.
That really is.
Oh, yeah.
Wherever Roman walks is Rome. Yeah.
And if you look at, and again, for all of his baggage, Roman Polanski, the reason he chose, the name that he did was because the Germans, when they invaded Poland, were, it was the Germanic tribes. It was an old fight, Germanic tribes against the Romans. And Roman Polanski, that's not his real name, but he chose the stage name Roman, son of Poland. That's what Polanski means. He was making the point, because his parents, I think both of them died in a concentration camp. It was an anti-German choice in his name. And so that stuff goes back. These people grind on this stuff forever. And if they don't, they know that a portion of the populace does, and that gives them the ability to control those people by pretending to care about those things. In the same way that, honest to God, I don't think anybody, in power in the South really wants to go back, the governors and the people in the state houses wants to go back to slavery and break away as the South for real. But they do know that playing footsie with a certain group of people, even if they just whisper it, the vast majority of their voters will shrug it off and go, it's just talk. And the ones that do like it or want it will go, aha, he's my guy. And I think, there's a lot of that kind of stuff perhaps in Russia and some of these other countries in terms of far-right people, because they don't really, it's faux populism, just like Trump's. He doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about the working class at all. He's going to dump them all and pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. And he's at one of his golf courses in Scotland, forcing the entire government of our country effectively to move there for about a week, because the cost of doing that, the tax dollars required to pay for that property at the retail level he asks for it, will keep that property afloat for 5 years. Just this visit. And they're milking, but they can sell this idea that those old grudges you got, I feel it too. That's what bothers me as well.
But let me posit this though, that it can also be used in a positive way, because what it's being used, this kind of mentality, not I'm going to be very careful about how I express this, but this linking with your heritage, with making contact with your heritage, especially if it has been stolen from you by a colonial or imperial power, can actually be a great motivator, because that's what many Ukrainians are doing. They are eliciting the spirit of the Cossack, this very independent, proto-democratic society that Moscow basically crushed and has been trying to suppress for centuries, not just with the identity of that culture, but also with the language and all the rest of it. So, and there is, you're kind of playing with fire, because there are some right-wing elements in Ukraine that could take that kind of stuff way too far, but they're in the vast minority, and obviously not nearly as big as Moscow, or the useful idiots like MTG or the other guys who claim that Ukraine is filled with fascists take it to. But what a healthy aspect to it is, no, we are fighting to regain not only our land, protect our families, but we are also reclaiming our history, our heritage. And from now on, we will tell the story of this land of Cossacks that will now be independent and sovereign and called Ukraine. And that, I think, is a positive way of using this connection to your lineage and your history.
Yeah, and when you live in the center of empire, you forget those people, because you're safe. The people who live in Sister F, Arkansas, don't give a damn about Ukraine or USAID or anything, because those are abstractions that are beyond the 7 hills of Rome. They'll never be a threat. But the people who are outside the empire, who are angry, my people, my beautiful Irish heritage, we can hold a grudge for 400 years, man. We're really good at that stuff. And people, if you're safe and you're living like MTG inside, you don't even know what's going on, because you don't care, because you're safe and you're rich you're powerful, and you don't need to worry about the frontier. But the frontier is always the place where empires start to fall. And that's what we're looking at actually in this country, which is the same kind of question: is what happens after the vacuum is created by the absence of Trump? What sort of thing will be, because
you want to talk about you live in interesting times. May you live in interesting times as a Chinese curse. We are very well confronting in the next 18 months a world with no Putin, Xi Jinping, or Donald Trump. That is a very strong possibility that one or all of them, because of failing health or other factors, I think my theory is Xi Jinping is the first to go, but that shift, can cause a domino effect. I think it will send reverberations through large swaths of the world. They'll do their best to shuffle it and make it seem like nothing, but Trump and Putin can't do that. They're, that line of succession, all three of them have worked very hard to make sure that the next person in line can't make a run for the money, can't make a run for the brass ring while they're still around. And that's really clear. So but they could all go almost at the same time. And what kind of world are we looking at where all three of those guys go at once? We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Please subscribe to the Professional Left podcast and to On the Edge, hosted by Philip Bittner. New episode tomorrow. We'll be back right after this.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. If the fates aligned, and all three of them were gone within like a 6-month period.
Yeah,
right.
Such
Boy,
a
upheaval, the chaos that would ensue.
And
I think probably of all three of those, Trump suddenly, going, if he eats the one cheeseburger too many,
right?
Because we have institutions that are battered, but they're still there. Putin leaves. We got all sorts of problems with like little fiefdoms and guys with their own militias, and the center cannot hold and all that kind of stuff. But I'll defer to you about China. But all of that is just, that prospect is just both scary and titillating.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult to chart any of them on their own. It's nearly impossible to chart all of them at once. And that's very much where we're headed. Like, there's a very strong possibility. And they wouldn't be the only ones. They'd just be the biggest. Like, MBS is going to be, MBS is, young guy. He'll probably be around for a while. But stuff happens. And, like, if the ball starts to turn and Iran decides it's the Saudis behind all this stuff, using Israel as a proxy and the United States as their protectorate, and they decide to go after the royal family because they want the Mecca and Medina, because Putin's, if they run out of runway because Putin's gone.
What happens to Netanyahu?
Right.
Those three guys all of a sudden
coming back in town.
Yeah.
It's a Kelvin crisis.
Wow. Yeah. I will say,
you're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I would like to point out as we're coming back in, the Russia's losses as of July 26 on a war that was supposed to take 6 days, and that Donald Trump, said they wanted to take the whole thing, apple of his eye, and that Vladimir Putin saw what happened in Afghanistan and was like, this is a perfect time to attack. The U.S. is weak. If that is the case, is single-handedly the most idiotic strategy in the history of military actions in forever. Because to gain 18 football fields of land, the man has lost 1,048,330 troops. Just 1,080 in just last night, in the last 24 hours. They've lost 421 planes, 340 helicopters, 23,000 plus armored vehicles, 56,000 vehicles and fuel tanks, 11,000 tanks, 30,000 artillery systems, 47,000 UAVs, 1,400 missile systems, heavy equipment, 28 warships and boats to a country with no navy, and they've even lost a submarine, for God's sake. They've lost 3,500 cruise missiles. These aren't ones that were fired and failed to reach their target or whatever. These are ones that were blown up on the ground. And Trump wants you to believe that it was genius of Vladimir Putin to look at our exit from Afghanistan and take away from it, now is the perfect time to attack Ukraine, and not, oh my God, the United States isn't wasting money fighting in Ukraine, and now they've got all this gear really close to me, where they could just move it right into Ukraine if they wanted to, and they don't want to fly it back home. That he didn't think that through, or that he was, I don't know if it was like COVID brain. It's hard to tell, but that is 1 million people.
And at this pace, they are never going to be able to reach their strategic goals in this war. It's it's not possible, because, and they haven't even hit the biggest urban center that they have taken. And when I say taken, I mean destroyed, was Mariupol. Now they've done a Potemkin village to kind of show that they've rebuilt Mariupol, but it's baloney. They haven't even, the only other thing they've got is like, Chasiv Yar, these places that were built for like 60 or 70,000 people, and they have to demolish them in order to take them. And they inch forward and they inch forward. They haven't gotten to these cities that are built for hundreds of thousands of people, much less a place like Kharkiv, which is built for over, I think it's close to 2 million. Yeah. They will have to grind through so much that this is just the beginning. And what people are afraid of is that it might start to fall into kind of like a forever war, where it is just slow grinding constantly, and they just keep their economy just on the teetering edge of collapse, but that they continue to fight. So the Ukrainians and the Europeans then have to continue to also
Well, we looked
into this as well.
We looked at Simonyan and Solovyev on Wednesday when you and I talked, and I played a little video of their feeling about it. And there are three options that Simonyan brings up. She mentions the first one, that there's a miraculous peace deal, not happening. The second one, which is what Solovyev wants, which is we nuke everybody. That's also not happening. So she says the most likely is that it just goes on and on and on and on. The problem is that Ukraine, both through the reinforcement of the Ukrainians or the Europeans themselves moving into place and picking up the slack for the United States, and quite frankly a turnaround by the administration, which is yet another thing, just like the Epstein thing, that's driving maggots crazy, is that, Hegseth tried to cut off arms twice, couldn't do it, still in the CR. They don't have a budget, so the money's going to keep going through. The arms are going to keep going out until the policy officially changes through the Congress. They control the purse strings. You can't override that. So that money and stuff is still going out the window. And then Trump makes this other deal with NATO to sell a bunch of arms because he needs the money to shore up the employment numbers in the United States. So he needs these arms to go out the door. He needs the military industrial complex, more than Biden did, because of his tariffs are eating jobs. So these things are going straight out to the Europeans, and they're passing them on. I think it was Lithuania just bought $38 million worth of Patriots, and they're going to give them to Ukraine and get paid back later. So they're basically doing this Lend-Lease thing, like second tier, like a currency exchange almost, right? And like that could go on for a long time, because Trump's not going to shut that down. He's not going to shut down arms sales to anybody, even if they are giving it to Ukraine or by proxy. He won't, because he needs it. He's got to have it to look like he's growing the military and building stuff, and money's being spent on tough guy stuff, right? And so
those numbers I'm reminded of the famous Napoleon marching into Moscow map. It starts off very wide and gets narrower and narrower, and then it's the retreat. I mean, they're just, I don't know who told them this would be a 6-day war. I don't know who told them this would be a good idea. But now, it's ego. Now I can't leave. Now I have to do the thing that I swore I would never do.
And you have a huge number of men mobilized, traumatized, battle hardened, who will be going back to a Russia. If the war was to stop today, they would be going back to a Russia with no work, because the war economy cannot just turn on a dime, and the sanctions are not going to be lifted significantly enough to provide them with work. They're terrified of that prospect. It's clear. So they have to keep going. But again, coming to this idea that they're not even reaching the bigger, more difficult fight. They haven't even gotten there yet. If they do not take Odessa, they need to do, and there are other strategic issues, and Hal knows this because I say it all the time, but here's the deal. Unless they change the government in Kiev to one that is far more pro or friendly to Moscow, and unless they take Odessa, thereby reaffirming their control over the northern shore of the Black Sea, which allows them to have a warm water port in Crimea, unless they can do those two things, this whole thing is a
waste
farce.
Of time.
And it is a disgusting waste of
human life,
men and material, human life and tragedy and suffering. And they're not going to do that. They're not going to take Odessa, and they're not suddenly going to get a pro-Moscow Kiev. The variable, and I'll just quickly wrap up. The variable is, of course, the Ukrainian people and how much they can suffer. Because make no doubt about it, we are suffering here. We had a month of intense attacks, and everybody is on edge. Everybody is exhausted. Tempers are high. We had protests this week, which I must point out, were conducted spontaneously with a lot of frustration and anger, but conducted peacefully, using their right for assembly given to them by the Ukrainian Constitution. Nobody's heads were cracked open. No, mass arrests or violence. And I think we're getting to a place where Ukrainians, having let off a little bit of steam, have said, you know what, we're upset with Zelensky because of this law that his party forced through abruptly, and we don't like this law, but nobody wants division. So their tempers are starting to go down, and I think Zelensky has heard the voice of the people, so there's a new bill that he is instrumenting to kind of more or less reverse the decision. Ukraine is okay for now, but under incredible strain. So that's the variable, I think.
I mean, there's a myriad of things that are, happening in this, but Ben Hodges, the former U.S. Army Europe commander, said officially this week, he goes, Ukraine has already proven it can hold off Russia. Russia only controls 19% of the country after fighting for 11 years. They've lost 1,048,000 people. Russia can't win this. They just can't. And ultimately there's a decent argument about whether they can hold the land they've got right now after all they've wasted trying to get more. Because who's going to police this? Where do they think these people are coming from? Besides the brain drain, besides the demographic issues that both they and China have in spades, there's an interesting thing about their particular economy. Both China and Russia is that, and it's odd that Trump wants to move factories back to the United States when he knows full well they're basically going to be vending machines with very few people in them. They're called dark factories. They don't even need to have lights on in them because there's so few human beings walking around. You can walk around with a miner's cap on because you only need light for the 3 or 4 people that are there to check problems. But Russia and China both have a very manual labor-oriented element to their economy still, largely because of oil and gas in the case of Russia and because of manufacturing and labor in China for other countries, small bits, plastic toys, circuitry, computers, assembly lines, not really made in China, but assembled in China is the reality, right? And so the United States, though, we've sort of economically moved past that. Whether Trump wants to admit it or not, part of the thing about moving your factories out to other countries is you become a middle management country. You become the rich country. That's what the Swiss are. That's what all these countries that have like innate wealth that we almost never hear about. The reason they sail through all this stuff is because they don't have to worry about the resource part of it. They just shuffle other people's stuff around, right? And they get rich doing it, and their people do very well, and all that kind of stuff. And if they don't have the resource curse, maybe like Norway or Denmark, they can, they don't have to shift over. Russia does. Russia's not going to, and they almost have no interest in modernizing their manufacturing or their economy or anything like that. It's almost like they think it's gay. Like they have it's like this so anti-gay, anti-woman thing. Honest to God, they're like, you know what I mean? Like automation's gay. Like you could hear them saying this kind of stuff because this is how they talk about dead soldiers. They're beating dudes in the head. If you look at, God forbid, on Telegram and any of the kind of like, Russian channels or whatever, they're beating wounded Russian soldiers to death, their own guys, with the butt stocks of their guns, so they're not wasting bullets, so they don't have to take them back. And they're F-bombing them left and right, calling them gay for getting shot.
Yeah, no, they got a whole thing about that. But noodle this around for a bit as well. As Russia inches forward and destroys, their technique is to destroy everything in their path, flatten it, and then move forward.
Right.
Even
Who rebuilds
so presuming they make some advance. Who rebuilds that?
Yes.
Who pays for that? Who maintains that? There's still going to be some people there that you're going to have to do something with. Well, I mean, can you even afford, if you are Russia, to absorb these lands that you've destroyed? It's just, you're right, Al. I mean, there is no way for them to win. It's just, unless something unexpected happens, but as it's going now, it's not possible.
Yeah. Well, Phil reminded me, I had never thought of this before, but we learned the lesson the hard way in Iraq. What happens when you cut hundreds of thousands of veterans loose in a country with no prospects? They don't turn their guns on us. They turn their guns on the government that made it possible. They turn their expertise against the people who put them in the firing line in the first place, which is insane. So you now have an internal enemy that's out of control and has no prospects and no loyalty to what's going on, and you have occupied nothing. You're ruling over the rubble. And what possible good can come of this? What can come out of this other than, I don't know, entire collapse, complete collapse?
When I was deputy bureau chief for CBS News in Baghdad, one of the things that I kept trying to have us report on was the idea that we needed to send in the Army Corps of Engineers and knock down every building that was a skeleton and scarred and charred from our shock and awe bombing campaign. Imagine being an out of work former major in the Iraqi Republican Guard who now is if he's got a job, it's a humiliating one, having to drive past the burnt out shell of the TV and broadcast building in downtown Baghdad every single day when I've got an AK at home. I mean, it's just it's short-sighted thinking that nobody is immune to. Obviously, the Americans and the coalition forces made some really, really bad decisions in Iraq, and the whole idea of occupying Iraq, was, but the Russians are doing it in like exponentially larger levels.
For the record, I'd like to point out the casualty numbers in Iraq were somewhere under 4,500. The casualty numbers in Vietnam for the U.S. were about 50,000.
Yeah.
And you can argue, we lost 50,000 people and we got out, but you do have a free Vietnam now. It's not colonized by the United States. It's not colonized by the communist Chinese. It does stand on its own. For what it's worth, whatever that time bought by us being there, that transition, whatever, like when the jump ball landed, it landed in Vietnam as a functioning country doing kind of just fine. But I want to say the Russians, they lose like 10,000 in Afghanistan, something like that, over the course of their decade
over
there.
like a 10-year period.
Yeah, it was like 1,000 a year. 1 million people. We got to take a break, but 1 million for this in 3 years. Like Vietnam went on and on. Afghanistan was 10 years Russia was there. They've lost 1,035,000 plus people, dead or incapacitated for the rest of their lives. Lost their limbs and never going back to the front. That's it. And they're gone. For what? And just, literally the fevered ego dreams of Vladimir Putin. That's what for. Because it ain't happening. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. You burned all your soldiers. If you maybe had made more progress when you'd only lost 300,000, you'd still have 700,000 people to continue to patrol cities and do all this stuff and this urban warfare and stuff like that. But you're farming people from North Korea and stuff. There's just no way this works. Like, this is as dead end as Vietnam was. This is an order of magnitude further down that road. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this for the final end of the show for the happy ending in this. But we do have a couple of questions, and the main one is, of course, does Phil feel safe in Kyiv? We'll find out right after this break. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, right. Vietnam is in the TPPA deal. Yeah.
Yeah, Afghanistan is not Ukraine, though, and it's not worth really going into on air. But this is existential for Moscow. Moscow has to have Ukraine to continue to be the empire, because you can't be the empire without
coming back in 10
Ukraine. So they're willing to spend a lot more, but to these levels, to these outrageous levels, no.
Jesus Christ! You could send Thank you. You could send like a fucking.
I am happy, you are happy. Let us be happy together. Whether the weather is cloudy or sunny, I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together. Whether the weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you? Chugga chugga choo choo woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yeah. So, Robin had a great question, which was, how does Russia shift from a war economy with nobody buying their oil? And I think it's even worse than that. But from both of you, thoughts on that?
No, they don't. They don't.
They got nothing else. Yeah, that's it. They're a gas station, And China's right next door building all the solar panels in the universe. And that's going to be a fun contest because this is dragging them backwards from Stalin. Stalin at least tried to haul the country forward into the 20th century, and this is nonsense. This is like us talking about coal jobs. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
they're betting a small amount on the Arctic, but I don't think it's going to work.
Right. They're pro climate change. They want that to continue so that the ice is easier to break. Literally, it's like it's like a story about
they become the trade route. Not only do they try to get access to what they think are some, reserves and like things under the ice in the Arctic, they're also hoping that what's called the Northeast Passage opens up, and that nobody has to go through Suez anymore, and you can just skirt along the Arctic Circle, and they will take a toll every couple hundred kilometers, and they'll become the most important trading section, trading route in the world. That's what they're hoping for.
A soft reboot of Ice Station Zebra. That's great. That's what we need.
There's another problem on top of it, which is oil is about $63 a barrel right now. And that's with all of Russian oil removed from the regular market. There's obviously some black market stuff to China, and there's some other stuff, but Iranian, Venezuelan, and Russian oil completely off the market. And there's still such low demand for oil that it's $63 a barrel. Well, if whatever your break even is, you need an extra $10 a barrel or $12 a barrel, whatever it is, depending on what you're trying to do and whether you trust what you're exploring or not, to drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill costs money. You don't just get the leases. You got to find the oil and dig for it and get it out of the ground and bring it to market and all that kind of stuff, which if you do, you spend $10 of that every barrel to lower the price of that barrel by $10. And there's a certain pivot point where that makes 0 sense on a commodity. It's literally a situation where if Russian, Venezuelan, and Iranian oil magically came on, Trump comes out, I made a deal, we're at peace, it's over, and we're going to let the oil back. The oil markets would cadaver. They'd be just as bad as they were under COVID. You would have negative $25 a barrel. They wouldn't know where to put it because the demand from China, which was fueling the expansion for the last decade, has been a paper tiger. It was a myth. It went away. They don't need the oil. Their economy is not growing. They don't have anywhere near the people they said they did. And it's falling apart. So they don't need to buy it. So who are you going to sell it to? We've got all we need. Australia's got all they need. Europe can get all they need from either us or the Middle East. And they're trying to use even less and less as they advance into this renewable category. And ultimately, that's the thing. Ultimately, it's about renewables. We put the resources that these countries have been using to leverage the rest of the world in place. It's over for those regimes. If you can't control the world by saying, I'm standing on the stuff you need, and you've got to start selling dates and rugs and calculators and whatever you got to invest in things and develop products and come up with an iPhone, in every country. That's a different market. That's a different world, and you can't muscle people that way. You can't. You want this Galaxy 7 or not? You can't put a gun to people's heads and make them buy your 3rd generation phone or your 4th generation refrigerator, no matter how hard Tucker Carlson sells it to people. It's bananas. It's not happening. It is not. And the best thing America can do is get on board with the renewables and nuclear as fast as we can, because we will put all of this in the rearview mirror. We electrify our grid and our cars. Just commuter cars. You can keep gas for trucks. We got plenty. You could use that fuel for other stuff. But if you took all the commuter cars, just made them all electric, that kills whatever financial future Russia thought it would have in the crib in that regard. It is. I just don't see an upside, and it's not going to change. Europe's not going to go back to oil, and neither is the United States. As much as Trump wants to, people are still going to move towards electric cars or hybrids, no matter what they do. The next person isn't just going to, oil's cheap, I'll just keep buying a friggin' Cadillac or something. It just isn't going to happen. And if it does happen, it will ruin Exxon and Chevron and BP and all these companies. They'll collapse if Russian oil and Iranian oil and Venezuelan comes back on. He can't let it happen. It's I'm just amazed that they think this is going to work out. I don't get it. So the question was, of course, does Philip feel safe? How does Philip stay safe? Beg your pardon, in Kyiv.
How do I stay safe? Well, there is. First off, do I feel safe? No, I do not feel safe. Nobody in Ukraine feels safe. That's the point. That's what the Russians are doing on purpose. How do I stay safe? First off, I've been coming to wars for 20 years or so. I know kind of how to maneuver. I picked out the apartment because it's got a couple of strong points in it that are at least 2 layers away from any glass, so that any flying glass from an explosion, I'm not under risk of that. Not only that, these are the kind of concrete pillars that build the building. So if the rest of the plaster and the kind of exterior of the building were to collapse due to an attack, it's more likely than not that these strong cement sections of my apartment would be the last to fall. I've got a helmet. I've got body armor. If we really get a strong attack like we've done a couple of times earlier in the war, right now we're going through a constant attack, but it's not heavy, if that makes sense. There's a bomb shelter, not 5 minutes, no, not even that, 3 minutes. If I really had to run down the stairs and get into a bomb shelter, I could be there real quick. So, but it's living under the constant fear of air raid alarms, and every time they go off nowadays, we are taking them far more seriously because the Russians are mass producing drones, and they don't have any problems using heavy ballistic missiles. Our air defense is kind of returning to a better way than it was previously, but it could be better. So we're always happy to get more Patriots, but that is how people are living in Ukraine, and it is an incredible strain now. 3.5 years into this thing, where people have had to put their entire lives on hold. They're under constant concern about the future, about about the very lives, and it's just the violence, the level of violence and suffering is it's unbearable. So all the more reason to give them all the weapons they need to defend themselves. And
that's right.
And
I want to say, yeah. So we're at the end of the show. I want to remind everybody, On the Edge is Philip's show. Go to YouTube and type in
this week
Philip
with Luke
Ittner.
Harding from from The Guardian. Great guy. Fascinating conversation because we've both been doing this for decades.
Excellent. And then, of course, Professional Left Podcast. Thank you, Driftglass, for being with us today. Thank you, Blue Gal, for filling his head with good ideas the entire time. I'm Hal Sparks. I'll see you next Saturday. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. We're right up at the tail end. Thank you, Chicago.
Thanks, guys.
I didn't even get to bring up my happy ending, which was Russia's main naval parade in St. Petersburg canceled without explanation. And what was this one? Ukrainian soldiers have liberated Kondratovka. Russia's lost 3 battalions in the Sumy region. 3 battalions for
their offensive. Their offensive is not going well. I think that's my friend Slavi.
Oh.
Go back up. Show me the girl. Girl.
Okay. Sorry. Her?
No, it's not. Okay. It looks very similar to her, but it's not her.
Well, she's very pretty, whoever she is. But she's the woman that they have on
Ukrainian
the top.
Women are notoriously stunning. They really are. And it's a reputation that's well deserved.
Yes. Well, this other one too, drone attack halts over 20 trains in southern Russia. And I got to say, one of the things that factors into, and I'll let you guys go, and I appreciate both of you for being on today, and Driftglass, thanks for filling in today with us. One of the things that, about like the Donbass and that whole area is that when they were holding it for a long time up till the invasion, or at least a year into the invasion, they didn't have to deal with drones. Not on this scale. And so let's say they're holding it for the next few years and they turn it into the old school, like they're going to control these areas. Saboteurs and other folks can get supplies via drones into that area, like Amazon boxes.
Yeah.
I don't know how you hold an area now, even urban warfare, with drones flying around showing you who's around the corner. And you're better at it than that side is, and the other side again thinks it's gay to even try. I'm not kidding. Like these guys are so like anti-gay and anti-woman that they just reacted. So I gotta say, like the drone problem is going to get worse for Russia because I don't think they can go all in. I think they like the big drones that are like little mini airplanes. But the little buzzy ones that can actually do the real damage, Russia's almost scared to use them. They don't even want successes. It sounds like it's not macho, for real. If it wasn't for Doge and Elon Musk really helping Hegseth get his position, I think Hegseth would have pushed back on little drones like the little quadcopters. But now he's selling them hard and buying them from Ukraine. Yeah. Anyways, you guys are wonderful. I'll let you guys go. I'm going to go take a nap myself, and then we're going to go see Fantastic Four. Yes?
Just one quick thing, a point of reference. The 3 years that Ukraine's been under this, the London Blitz lasted 8 months. The the historic bombing of London, the horror, the subway, all of it, that was just 8 months. You guys have been under the London Blitz for 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking and insane. So
yeah.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Absolutely. All right, I'll talk to you later, guys. Be safe.
All right.
Okay.
On Wednesday.
Cheers.
Watch tomorrow's show.
Yes, watch On the Edge tomorrow. There you go. I'll remind everybody. And off they go. Thank you guys. And by the way, hi chat room. And yes, I do have a little bump on my head from hitting myself in the head with the microphone last night for a joke. So I could scratch myself. Doing a joke with the microphone. So I'm okay though. Except being very tired. So I'm going to go and thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for sharing the show. Thank you for your likes, your thumbs up, thank you to the Patreons and those folks who watched the show last night. I hope you guys had a good time. I certainly did. Really lovely crowd too. Anyways, I'm gonna go take a nap, and I will see you guys on Monday. By the way, I'm just gonna let you guys know ahead of time. I'm not doing a show on Tuesday because of family stuff, and I will be a wreck. No permanent damage. Nobody's dying. It's not that. I mean, nobody can tell the future, but that's not what it is. But just on Tuesday, I will just reserve the right to be a mess. So just know that, and I appreciate you guys. But I will see you on Monday for both shows, and you guys are fantastic. And I will see you later on. Excellent.
Sportos, motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, dickheads. They all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
That was really cool, by the way. You think you know something about everything, don't you? Just follow the money. Man's got to know his limitations. Oh, nice Mormon.
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? I make you laugh? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
He's a genius, see? Negative function.
Oh, hello there!
I love lambs.
We need you. Hell, I need you. I'm a mess without you. I miss you so damn much. I miss being with you. I miss being near you. I miss your laugh. I miss your scent. I miss your musk. When this all gets sorted out, I think you and me should get an apartment together.
Why are you dressed like that?
This man's obviously a lunatic. I'm calling security.
They tried to hook up wires to copper, and it can't be done.
He's a genius, see?
We're going to have it cauterized by Congress.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
You using the whole fist, Doc?
Michigan gave us Motang.
Looking around here, I can tell you're a genuinely dirty person.